Welcome back. For years, we have been talking about vets and post-traumatic stress and the battles they face long after the fight is over. But increasingly, we're becoming aware of PTSD first responders are dealing with from years of running into situations people are trying to escape from. Recently, Stephen Ledoux, a 29-year veteran of the Tampa Fire Department, took his own life after years of battling fires and the post-traumatic stress that comes with it. It just happens to be Mental Health Awareness Month, which means that it is a perfect opportunity to talk about post-traumatic stress and our first responders. And joining us for more are Lieutenant Jeff Ryder of South Manatee Fire Rescue, Eddie Rainier, a licensed psychologist in Sarasota, and ABC7 anchor and reporter Jacqueline Matter, who has made a real effort to tell the stories of PTSD and how it impacts military members and their families. And Lieutenant, let me start with you, because you were telling me or describing to me some incredible experiences and situations where you and your men are at a scene, tragic scene, and then you come back to the firehouse and you try to talk about it.
Yeah, that's correct. A lot of times what we'll do is we'll run maybe a vehicle accident with fatalities or a call involving a child. And when we get back, yeah, we like to sit down and talk about it, because the more you talk about it and you get it out and you verbalize, the better you're going to deal with those feelings and emotions.
What's interesting is before you were with the fire department and EMS, you worked in the mental health field, and you know how important it is for first responders to do just this.
Yeah, yeah. I did have many years in mental health and working in hospitals, and what it taught me is to recognize early warning signs. You know, that's the key, is being able to recognize early warning signs when guys start to isolate, maybe they're not talking as much. You really need to be able to identify that and then ask them, you know, hey, what's going on? Are you having a problem? If they're having a problem, if they say they're having a problem, then we'd like to refer them to our EAP, Employee Assistance Program. We also have a critical incident management team in Manatee County that we can refer our firefighters and first responders to, which has been real helpful through the years.
Dr. Rainier, I couldn't help but notice where Lieutenant Ryder is talking about the resources available in Manatee County and what he does with his men. You said in Erica's piece that you very rarely have police officers and firefighters come to your practice seeking help.
You know, until this law that seems to it's going to take effect, there's a lot of stigma associated with mental disorder, and so people don't like to admit that they have problems. Particularly first responders don't like to admit it. They see themselves being tough and facing impossible situations. So to admit to themselves that something's wrong, that I'm not coping well, and the next step to actually go to see someone, it's something really difficult for them. So they avoid those kinds of situations. Part of the reason I constantly say we need to destigmatize mental health services to make them a normal part of health care. Health insurance companies need to cover it. We need to talk about it openly, as we're doing today, so that people understand that we have systems in our bodies. One of them is an emotional system. It can be hurt, it can be impaired. And luckily for us, there's really good help if we seek it out.
Jacqueline, you know from your own work when it comes to our military members and dealing with PTSD, especially after the decades now of combat that our men and women have faced, that it's taken an incredible amount of time and work to destigmatize seeking help.
Very true. I mean, I know from some of the victims that I've spoken to and reports that I've done, I've had a firefighter tell me in person, not on camera, but off camera, saying, you know, for the longest time before he had talked to a psychologist, he thought he was normal. He thought these emotions going on in his mind and these things that he was thinking were normal. But in reality, he was depressed and had anxiety, and he just thought those were normal things he was supposed to be going through. And then for me personally, my family has dealt with PTSD. My stepdad, you know, I grew up around it, and, you know, being able to tell my story to people helped not only me, but my family as well, kind of break that stigma and be able to reach out and help other people to help break that stigma.
Okay, we are just getting warmed up. We'll have much more on PTSD and first responders right after we check the First Alert weather, so stay with us. Welcome back. We are talking about PTSD and first responders, and joining us for more are Lieutenant Jeff Ryder of South Manatee Fire Rescue, Eddie Rainier, a licensed psychologist in Sarasota, and ABC7 anchor and reporter Jacqueline Matter, who has really made an effort to tell the story about how PTSD impacts the military and their families. And Jacqueline, I want to start with you so you could give folks really kind of an inside look at how it not only affects the first responder or a member of the military, but also their family. And you focused on this in your professional and your personal life because of your own experiences.
Right. Both my dad and my stepdad were served in the military and suffered from PTSD. And I remember at one point when I was growing up in high school, we would have tarps over all of our windows. My stepdad slept with an AK-47 next to the bed because of the experiences he had while serving in Iraq. And it got to the point where my mom and my sister and I had to leave the family household because it wasn't in our best interest to be there any longer. And that was really kind of a hard moment for us as a family to know that we had tried all of our best options to provide mental health and provide care for my stepfather, but it just, it was so severe, and he wasn't willing to admit that he had PTSD. It was, no, I'm fine, this is normal, this is what every military member experiences, or in this case a first responder, this is something that's part of the job. But at the end of the day, talking about those experiences is really what's needed. And at the end of the day, we expect these people to put their lives on the line for us every single day. But in turn, we need to be there when they come back and give them the options to get the care that they need.
And Eddie, when we're thinking about this, every day our firefighters, police, EMS, they face these situations. But look at just a couple of weeks ago, Parkland. Could you imagine what those first responders went through? Sandy Hook, what they saw with all those babies dead. 9/11, firefighters not just from New York City, but there were departments that responded to that from around the entire country.
Alan, what you put your finger on something important. First responders are people who have a calling. It's not by accident they become firemen and policemen and first responders. It's because it's a mission inside of them. They want to be there for us. They want to be strong for us when we're weak. They want to be the person that responds to the impossible situations. It's part of them. But they're also human beings. They also have feelings. They also have families. And they don't want to die. They don't want to see other people killed. They don't want to see children get hurt. But this is a daily part of their lives. And that has a consequence. And that consequence, for many years, we've ignored. We said, they're tough. They're not going to break down. They're tougher than nails. They don't break down. Well, even nails fail. And so they, too, can have trauma. What we have to do is make the access to services easy and to make it without stigma so that they'll go to get the services.
Lieutenant, not every department has someone like yourself who worked in the mental health field before they went into this kind of work.
Right.
The situation that really kind of started with the suicide of that firefighter in Tampa resulted in the state's CFO, Jimmy Petronas, taking up the cause and getting legislation passed that really changed how the system in terms of paying for services and workers' comp in Florida that will help every single first responder in the state. If you could help us explain that.
Well, first of all, we're very fortunate and thankful that that bill passed. It was something we were really hoping we would get passed. What it does is it allows firemen, EMS, police to access care and not have to be overly concerned with the medical costs that is associated with it. It also provides benefits through workers' comp to where you can be off work under workers' comp and you don't have to worry about sick time and things of that nature.
How is that different than the system before?
Well, the system before, if you were struggling, you would access through your own insurance or possibly EAP if your department had it. But you would access through your insurance and you might have to take time off from work, extended time off from work, and that can be tough to do, depending on your time allotted and things of that nature.
And Eddie, you're on the forefront because, you have a practice and you know firsthand that insurance companies don't always do a terrific job in paying for these kinds of services.
Often insurance covers mental health as a stepchild. It is the least covered, the most difficult to access. They frequently limit the number of services someone can get. And they want therapists to release vital information that the patient may not want out. So they put people in difficult situations. So that's why first responders and people with mental health service problems don't go to see people. They avoid them because they see consequences. They see their confidentiality at risk. There's a cost associated with it. There is loss of pay from work. Some people, if they go to see a mental health person, they don't get paid for that hour they're missing or that 2 hours they're missing from work. So the barriers create problem to access mental health services. We need to eliminate those barriers.
You know, Jacqueline, obviously this new state program and this new state law is a terrific step forward in terms of first responders here, but from your own personal experience, I could see that the need is more than just the first responder or the member of the military itself. Who helps the families who are traumatized by the effects of their loved one's PTSD and gets them help, family counseling, or anything you need to survive this?
Right, that's a good question, and that's where the family has to kind of take it into their own hands and go see somebody like Dr. Renier here as a family and maybe really talk about it and see what they can do to move forward and take that time to maybe reflect on it themselves. As far as I'm concerned, through extensive research I've done, I've never seen an organization specifically aimed at military or first responder families and the children of these people who are putting their lives on the line and experiencing these traumatic events. So that's a good question. You know, that's where we need to also extend these types of services as well, and breaking that stigma for not only the person impacted by PTSD, but also, or any mental illness for that matter, but also letting people know. And I think that's a conversation that in today's day and age we have expanded on a broader level. It's being talked about more and more, and bills like this one that has recently passed is making that talk and conversation able to happen. And so continuing on that path and moving forward with that is really what we need to do.
Lieutenant, this new law takes effect in October, I believe, but in your experience with the women and men who work with you, how do you think that they will take advantage of it, and with everything else, are there resources out there for their families who have to also deal with it?
Well, speaking of families, most EAP programs will allow family counseling and families to be involved. So that's good. And yeah, I do. I believe that there's men and women out there that will be more apt to take advantage of getting help and receiving benefits and taking care of that post-traumatic. The more we can offer, the more avenues we have to get help, I think the better it is.
Finally, Doctor, over the course of time, have you seen any kind of uptick in first responders reaching out for service to folks like yourself for help in terms of coping, or has it kind of been at a level?
You know, the experience I've had is that law enforcement officers are much more apt to take advantage, to seek someone like me out and say, I'm having problems. Typically, they come in saying, my family's having problems. And then you talk to the family, you find out, oh, so you need to come in too. And that's how they get in. But however they get in, we're glad to see them. And the good part is that we have effective treatment that brings about relief. And that's what people don't know. And it's not forever treatment. Very quickly we can stop symptoms and get people functioning and feeling better, and their families feeling more comfortable.
All right. Before we go, we want to share with you what some of you had to say about last night's show about the Rosemary District apartments going up in Sarasota. The apartments will attract new residents to downtown Sarasota, but with a one-bedroom starting out at over $1,500 a month, who could afford it? We went to Facebook to hear your thoughts, and James says the wealthy love to eat out, call a plumber, have their suits dry cleaned, etc., but they are successfully pricing the people who do these jobs right out of the area. TA says, go to one of the city council meetings, see for yourself. We as a community have no voice. They make their own rules and decisions. They will never be true affordable housing because there are forces at play way bigger than little old me and the community. And Betty says, we will lose all the young entrepreneurs and professionals because we allowed the market to price them out. Well, If you'd like to join the conversation about tonight's topic, just visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/mysuncoast.com.abc7. And FYI, you can watch past discussions on demand. They're available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. We want to thank all our guests: Lieutenant Jeff Ryder of South Manatee Fire Rescue, Eddie Renier, a licensed psychologist in Sarasota, and ABC7 anchor and reporter Jacqueline Matter, who has really made that effort to tell the stories about PTSD and how it affects military families and the military.